Hey, hope you're having a great week. So happy to see you here. Today, I want to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about because I find that a lot of people have some confusion around this topic and I love to clear it up. So, today we're going to talk about what's the difference between your branding and your brand. And there's a big difference, and it's a really important. Until you understand this, you might not actually give it as much time and attention as you ought to be giving it. So I want to make sure that I'm super clear and talking about what the difference is so that you can see where you might need to make some changes. If you don't know me, I'm Lori Reeves. I'm the founder and CEO of Brand Strength, and I help people take their business up a level, whether that means that they are going to get their first $2,000 high offer into somebody's hands, or if they're going to add $20,000 in the next year, and I help them do that within 90 days. So that is what I do. And we work on several different things when I work with a client, but one of the big things that we work on is the client's brand. Now, let's get into this. What is the difference between branding and a brand? So your branding is your color palette and your logo and the fonts that you choose. Okay, your brand, the way I like to describe is how people recognize your business typically. There are some brands that incorporate some other things. There's a hotel brand that actually has a signature scent. And so when you go into their hotels, you smell this, recognize that you are at that establishment. Okay. But for the most part, your branding will help somebody recognize you. Your brand, on the other hand, is how people recognize your business experientially, what it's like to work with you and what you stand for and what you do. Okay. So the branding is very concrete, right? Obviously, you're going to have certain colors, you're going to have a logo, you're going to use certain fonts. Now, let's talk a minute about what you need to take into consideration when you're looking at your branding. The biggest thing is consistency, honestly. A lot of people get really about their logo and they think it's something that's like ultra designed or, different from what everybody else has. But what you really need it to be is recognizable and readable, like big keys, okay? And then the way that you make it recognizable is by using it everywhere, okay? Like my logo, I use it in a lot of different places, right? It's how I'm recognized. Encompass what my brand is, right? So if you don't have your branding locked down, all you need to do is go create something simple that's readable and that you're going to use consistently everywhere you go. Okay, if you're going to be creating things that you're going to hand to somebody, your logo is going to look the same or very similar. What you're seeing here is what I call the stacked version. And then I also and strength are all on one line. And I have it that way just because different places that I want to put my logo makes sense to either have where it can be a shorter file or needs to fit in a smaller space, and then the stacked version makes more sense, right? So other than that, the colors don't change. If I put it on a dark background, but the fonts, they look the same, right? I have that consistency through and through. Same with your color. It just needs to be something that you're going to stay with consistently. Your fonts are one. If you can't stay with the fonts you've chosen for your branding on a specific platform, so let's say a lot of times email will have very limited numbers of fonts that you can choose from. But if you at least stay in the same font family, and what I mean by that is there are fonts that are called serif or serif fonts, and that's just with the little bars and the little decorator, or you have sans serif or sans serif, as I call it, and sans just means without. And so that means that they're not going to have those extra little decorative elements on it. Okay. So if you know regular fonts, Times New Roman is a serif font and Arial is a sans serif font. Okay. So if you choose to use with all the text on your website, all the copy that you have, you might want to go with a font on your emails in the same style. Okay, it just kind of helps have that consistency and that recognizability. However, with your brand, it's much more about the experience and the way when they interact with you. And you can think about any brand that you love or, that you are loyal to, right? So like I'm an Apple user. I love Apple. An iPhone, I have a MacBook. I'm on a MacBook right now. I love Apple products. I have iPods and whatever, right? But when I think about the brand of Apple, I'm not thinking about the apple with a bite taken out of it. That's not what's coming into my mind, right? When I think about Apple, I think about clean lines and super usability and being modern. Those are the kinds of things that I think about. Being well taken care of. I feel like Apple takes care of me as a consumer. A lot of thought into how they create things so that it's easier for me to use. That's what the brand encompasses. Okay, their branding sometimes has the rainbow, has the little apple with the bite taken out of it. But when I'm thinking about Apple as a brand, I'm not just thinking about their logo and their fonts and their color palette. Okay, now a lot of times for entrepreneurs, or maybe even somebody who's been serving clients for a long time, may not have done a lot of thought of thinking about what their brand is all about. Luckily, that's one of the clients with, because if you have confusion about what your brand is about, you will never create in the people you're talking to. Confusion cannot create clarity. So if you have any kind of confusion, you are just going to be passing that confusion on to the people that you're talking to. And if you've ever heard the saying, I don't think it's just a copywriting saying, it's like a sales saying, like the confused mind does not buy. Okay. So if you have any, if you not what the experience you want people to have when they interact with your brand, and you're not completely sure what you stand for, who you serve exactly, and why you exist, and what you want people to feel when they're interacting with you, and you've got some work to do in your business, because that brand feeling is what people will associate with your brand, or they see you on any kind of social media, or they encounter you somewhere, right? If they're familiar with your brand, if they have that experiential familiarity with you, then there's like a feeling. It's hard to describe what it is, right? Because it's like not necessarily specific thoughts. It kind of is. It's more just a feeling of who you are and what your company stands for. And again, if you have not taken the time to really nail down what your brand is all about and the experience that you want people to have when they interact with your brand, chances are they're not having that experience. And if you can create that experience, you can create much happier customers and people who will turn around and rave about people, that if they're looking for a service like you provide, you are the person they should talk to. That is how you get people who are repeat customers and evangelists for your brand. So if you haven't thought about this and you want some help just kind of thinking through, like, what is my brand? How do I recognize consistent as I work with people? I would love for you to reach out. This is the work that I do with people to help them get a brand that is the same everywhere, that produces amazing results and helps people identify them as a brand that they would recommend over and over, shout testimonials, give referrals, and so on and so forth. So if you need help with that, if you feel like there's something undone within the foundation of your brand, solidly explain why your brand exists and who it helps and what it's doing and the experience that people have with you, then that's something that you need to be paying attention to and at least giving some of amongst all the other things that you're doing in your business. So I hope this was kind of helpful. I know a lot of people, when I talk about your brand, a lot of people start talking about their website and their logo and their fonts and their color palette. And it's hard for me to kind of get them in that moment to switch over to, I'm not actually talking about that. I'm talking about the experience of working with you and amplifying that and raising that up so that it's a high value experience and experience over and over again, and make sure other people experience as well. So again, I'd love to talk to you. If you have any questions about your brand or how to make a better brand, put them below, or we can just start a conversation about that. So I would love that. Hope you're having a great week. Hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you the next time I go live.